That's a pretty funny joke, by the way. Mm-hmm. Okay. Saul said to his armor bearer, "Draw your sword and pierce me through, otherwise uncircumcised Philistines will come and pierce me through and abuse me." This armor bearer was unwilling because it was very fearful. Saul took his sword and fell on it. So Saul dies by sword, and when Yeshua comes back, from his mouth comes a sharp sword, and he's going to strike down the nations, right? And the rest were killed with the sword. So there's sword killing, with both involved, Antichrist and Saul. So Saul could be an Antichrist type. Okay? Oh, David and Goliath. Now, I have a talk on David and Goliath. I think it's 2 parts long and probably 4 hours. So there's heaps and heaps of parallels. I'm going to just throw out a couple of them to you and encourage you to go watch my David and Goliath video, because I don't want to give you the whole 2 hour, 3 hour part on this. Let's start with this. The champion commanded the armies of the Philistines, whose height was 6 cubits in a span. He had a bronze helmet. This is all his wardrobe. Okay, we're not going to read it. We're going to read it in a minute. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam. The head of his spear weighed 600 shekels of iron. His shield carrier walked before him. We skip over this when we read this, because it mentions it twice in the Goliath story. Goliath is an Antichrist character. But he's going to have somebody in front of him holding the shield. And you know, Antichrist has a false prophet who's in front of him pointing. Okay? So that's a parallel we don't often see. And it's mentioned here, and it's mentioned a few verses later in the David and Goliath story. Okay, this shield bearer. So keep that in mind, that is a parallel. Okay. Here's where we started to read before we did, but we're reading now. Champion Goliath and Gath, whose height was 6 cubits. The shaft of his spear was like a weaver's beam. The head of his spear weighed 600 shekels. And look, he had helmet, armor, greaves, javelin, spear, and shield. He had 6 pieces of armor. Ooh. So there is a 666-ness to him. And that also applies to Nebuchadnezzar, which we're going to talk about later, but look at Nebuchadnezzar here. Nebuchadnezzar, the king, made an image of gold, the height of which was 60 cubits, its width was 6 cubits, and at the moment you hear the sound of the horn, flute, lyre, trigon, psaltery, bagpipe, 6 instruments. So Nebuchadnezzar is a Antichrist type. All right? Here's the David and Goliath head wound. Goliath's going to get a head wound. Antichrist gets a head wound. Okay. Goliath, blasphemous words, you know. Who can wage war with him? He's a world dictator, kind of out of the sea. Out of the sea, if it's the land, it's Israel, the sea of the nations. Goliath's not part of Israel, he's out there. Another beast coming out of the earth. There's that shield bearer who walks in front. Okay? There's a 666-ness. It says here, he had a bronze helmet, and he was clothed with scale armor, which weighed 5,000 shekels of bronze. This word for scale armor is kaskasim, which is the Hebrew word for fish scales. So Goliath's armor looked like fish scales, and the parallel there I'm looking at is the dragon. That's part of the Antichrist is under the dragon. So there's a tie-in there. I think this is a lot of jumping ahead right now until we get. Again, I don't want to Now here's the other, look at this. Verse 41, the Philistine came upon and approached David with the shield bearer in front of him. There's that false prophet type, shows up again. There's the second mention of the shield bearer. There's one last thing I want to say about this. Here, look at 1 Samuel 17:54. It says, then David took the Philistine's head and brought it to Jerusalem, and he put his weapons in his tent. Okay, now Goliath was really big. His head was like this. Okay, it's going to be heavy. And all of his armor and all that, he's got it. And it's about 20 miles to Jerusalem from where this battle took place. So it says David took the Philistine's head and brought it to Jerusalem, and his weapons he put in his tent. So David brings all Goliath's weapons and armor. He puts that in his tent. What does David do with his head? You're not going to put the head in your tent because it's going to start stinking, right? So, and you can't take it into the city, Jerusalem, because you can't have dead things in there, right? This is the holy city, right? It turns out across the street from Jerusalem today, there's a bus station. It's where the Arabs go. If you want to go to Ramallah or Jericho, that's that bus station. If you want to go parts of Israel, the Jews have their own bus station on the other side of town. There's two bus stations. One goes to Jewish cities, one goes to Palestine cities, okay? And the bus station on the Palestinian side, which is right across from the wall, old city wall, there's the bus station, and then behind it there's an outcropping of rock. And then there's all these tunnels and caves down inside this outcropping of rock. And I'm telling you, it's just across the street, a place to park 50 buses, and then there's that rock. And up on top of there, that's where Jesus is crucified. Okay? So this is the place of the skull. If you look at this rock, this mountain outcropping, it looks like a skull. Okay? And I believe that this is where David put that head down in there, which then helps fulfill that Genesis 3:15, that one's going to crush his heel and he's going to crush his head. Whose head? Well, the whole mountain looks like a head, and Goliath's head is inside there someplace. Maybe Jesus' blood drips. Just hitting the shape of the mountain, the rock, is crushing Satan's head. Plus, Satan's head will be crushed when he's thrown into the fire forever. But also, just symbolically, maybe some blood dripped down through and hit that skull that was down inside there. Okay. Years ago, I took my Jewish friend who lives in Israel, but he's Jewish. So he never crosses the street and goes to that part of town, because Jews don't go to the Arab part of town, and Arabs do wander to the Jewish side. But the Jews don't go to the Arab side. Usually. Every once in a while you'll see one brave one walking, but it's because they don't go over that side. And I was taking Reuben over there, and there were about 7 or 8 of us, and Reuben. And so we were all Gentiles, and so Reuben felt safe amongst all, otherwise he would never, he just said, I can't cross the street. You know, you can't go. I said, come on, you're with us. They're not going to hurt you, you know. So as we're walking into that bus thing, he looks at this outcropping, and he said, what do you call this? I said, it's Golgotha. And he said, the Hebrew word for skull is Golgotha. Golgotha, that sounds Golgotha. That sounds really close. You know? I said, yes, Jesus is crucified up on top of here. It's amazing. It was just across the street. But a Jew, they have no idea that's even there. You know? It's... We have time. Yeah, we have time. Well, there's a really famous singer in Israel. His name was Arik Einstein. I never heard of him. But it turns out he was big in like 1947. He was a young 18, 19, 20-year-old. He had a good voice. And he was there singing as they were declaring independence. And he stayed on TV, and he was on game shows and music shows. And he's been with Israel since its beginning. And maybe 10 years ago, I was in Israel when he died. And I was up at my friend's house on the Israeli side. I'm saying, this guy is, it's like when Michael Jackson died, or Frank Sinatra. Somebody who's been around forever, maybe more Frank Sinatra, but as popular as Michael Jackson. And you know how the news just, it's a 24/7 for days, playing clips in the morning and people lighting candles, and the Prime Minister has a statement to make about Arik Einstein, and they're showing clips from 1949, and it was just non-stop wall-to-wall coverage that this guy died. People were gathered in the squares in Tel Aviv singing his songs, holding hands, lighting candles. So I was there for about 3 days watching this. And then I went to Jerusalem, and I went over to the Muslim side, because that's where I stay, because it's cheap, and I am cheap. Confirmation? He's sleeping. So, and there's one restaurant I go to all the time. The guy who owns it is an Arab Christian ex-math teacher. I'm a math teacher, and I love to do the gematria and really deep. And I'll go in and we get to talking, and I show him stuff, and he goes, "My goodness, how I can't believe you! This is pi. This is the natural logarithm in the Bible, and all these things I show him." And he's smart enough in math to know this is. And so we're chatting, and I said, "Hey, what about Arik Einstein dying, huh?" He said, "Who?" I said, "Arik Einstein? You know, I didn't know him 5 days ago, prior, but I met him. I learned about him quick, and I even like some of his songs because they were playing them nonstop." He said, "I don't know who that is." I said, "He's like the Frank Sinatra of across the road," and it really is. There is a road, and he said anything on that side of the road is, they have their own TV shows, their own radio, their own newspapers, and on this side the Arabs have their, and we do not mix. We don't listen to anything Jewish on this side of the street, and they don't listen to anything Arab on that side of the street. Why did this even come up? I don't even. Oh, because we were taking Reuben there to the bus stop. So he doesn't even know about Golgotha and anything there. Okay. So what do we got here? Now Saul saw David going out against the Philistine. He said, "Who is the young man?" The king inquired who the young man is. And David returned from killing the Philistine and brought him before Saul with the Philistine's head in his hand. Saul said, "Who are you, young man?" David answered, "I am the son of your servant Jesse, the Bethlehemite." And this is a picture of, here's the bus station. You can see there's some buses here. Somebody's parked there. And it kind of looks skull-like, right? And it makes sense to me that, remember, David can't put the head in the tent, and so he puts it there. And whose head was it? It was Goliath of Gath, right? I thought I had. Where'd it go? I don't have it on this one. Sorry. But yeah, you've already figured it out there. Goliath of Gath. Goliath of Gath. Go-Gath. Go-Gath. That's another piece of evidence why I think he buried him in that cave. Okay? And it's just a coincidence that the Hebrew word for skull is Golgotha. Everything points to that. Now, up on top here, this wall, that's new. When I first went in 2008, there was no wall there. And up on top of there is a Muslim cemetery. And so you can go way out around here and then go up inside, and you can still go up there, but you can't look down and see anything up there. Okay, it's just tombs. Okay, and here's remember, a certain woman threw an upper millstone on Abimelech's head, crushing his Golgotha. This is earlier on back in Judges. So it is proof that that skull is Golgotha and Golgotha. It's funny just how they all kind of come together. Now there it is, Golgotha, place of the skull. Oh, I think all four Gospels refer to it as that. Yeah. What is this? You know, years ago, I was going to rewrite the Bible in poetry. A huge undertaking, let me tell you. And I would just do different types of poetry depending on whatever inspired me that day. And here is a little bit of the David and Goliath. I've more than half the Bible is done, but I haven't done anything in 20 years. And what I did do, some of it's good, some of it's... young David, with his boyish look, flung one small stone from nearby brook. Hit in the head, Goliath shook and fell down on his face. Then with the giant's sword in hand, this shepherd killed Goliath and cut off his head as he had planned. Their foes ran from that place. It's really, the David and Goliath is really good. This is the JKV version. My favorite one was, if I can remember it, and I used different ones. The Exodus is all limericks. Very, very good, very funny. There's a type of verse, poem called a higgledy-piggledy. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. It's 8 lines. There's another little side thing going on here. A higgledy-piggledy. The first line, it's that meter. higgledy-piggledy. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Second line is proper noun in that same meter. Higgledy-piggledy Sergei Rachmaninoff. Okay, so here's the whole one. Higgledy-piggledy Sergei Rachmaninoff wrote his concertos for hands spans like wings. Few pianistically can realistically, digitalistically play the darn things. Because they're just so hard. Okay, so that's it, 8 lines. So I did the whole Genesis in this form. And wilefully, vilefully. Oh, the second line always has to be proper noun. Capital A. So vilefully, wilefully, Satan the evil one slithers to Eve and says, "Want to see light? No need to wonder how. Why don't you wander now over to yonder bough and take a bite?" That's not bad. That's the one I remember a couple of stanzas of some certain ones. That's was a good one I like. All right, we're going on. Here, David, a type of Christ, slew Goliath with a sword. By the way, it says David took the sword, drew it out of its sheath, and killed him, and cut off his head. The stone didn't kill Goliath. What does it say? Yeah, he took Goliath's sword and killed him. The stone knocked him down, but it didn't kill him. That's some little thing we miss. Okay. King Solomon. I put Solomon as maybe an Antichrist character, a little bit. There's parts of Solomon that just love God, but then he had the 700 wives and 300 wives and 700 concubines, and he was following their gods. So there's a little, Solomon can go both ways, okay? So he got a little bit of blue for Israel, and he got a little bit of green for the beast Antichrist, okay? And there is this cool thing about Solomon. Watch this. Now, King Solomon gave the Queen of Sheba all she desired. She turned and went to her own country, she and her servants. The weight of gold that came to Solomon yearly was 666 talents of gold. So that's kind of interesting that he would get 666 talents. Watch this. Here is verse 14 in Hebrew. Here's the first line. You can see the word gold, gold. Here's Solomon, Shlomo. And here is 6. This is Mayot, 100. Shashim is 60. And 6 talents. And here's gold. And if I take the first letter of each of these numbers, is that just unbelievably cool that the number 666 talents, the first letter of each one adds up to 666? Yeah, that's cool. There's that button I'm not supposed to touch. And here, there were 6 steps to Solomon's throne, and around top of the throne its back, armrests on each side, 2 lions standing beside the armrest. 12 lions are standing on the 6 steps, one on one side, one on the other. So this is Solomon's throne. You've got 6 lions on one side, 6 lions on the other, and 6 steps. So you have a 666 maybe there. And not to mention that Solomon he was in love with the Lord, and he also was doing bad things. So I think overall I'm giving him a thumbs up. Okay, Nebuchadnezzar, we're not going to spend a lot of time about him, but I did want to show you this, because we sometimes miss this. At the beginning of your supplication, the command was issued, and I have come to tell you that you are greatly beloved. Therefore understand the matter and consider the vision. This is Daniel's praying, right? And then the angel comes and says, I've come to tell you because you are greatly beloved. And in the New Testament, there reclining on Jesus' bosom, one of his disciples whom Jesus loved. There's 2 people in the Bible that God says he loves and that are beloved. Daniel and John. And Jesus, but yeah, Jesus is the one who loved. But of just of normal people, 2 are beloved of God. Okay? And what do these 2 have in common? What is the benefit of being beloved? I think it's you get to see the future. Because Daniel, he said, remember, seal up all this. Do I have a slide for that? No. But there was in the book of Daniel, remember, he's at the end of Daniel, he said, seal up all this till the end of days. But he showed Daniel all the stuff that's coming, right? And John, in Revelation, he said, come up here and I will show you all the things. So if you're greatly beloved, you get to see what's coming. That's pretty cool. And I think of that when I'm studying and I find out, look at that nugget. Oh, this is what's coming. What is it? And I realize, I must be greatly beloved because he's showing me. You know? And now he's showing you. Okay. We're going to jump here because we're running out of time. Here's Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. In order to cast them into the furnace of blazing fire. So you have Nebuchadnezzar is the king of Babylon. Antichrist, he's referred to as king of Babylon. That's one of his names in the Old Testament there. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, that's the Jews, right? And the fiery furnace is a picture of the tribulation period. Notice the Jews will go through the tribulation period. It's called the time of Jacob's trouble, right? So they're going to be part of that. And those are Jewish boys here that are, okay? Antichrist, the king of Babylon. You know what always puzzles me about this? And that is, if this is the right button, where's Daniel? Why wasn't he thrown into the fiery furnace? Or is Daniel a picture of those who are raptured because they didn't go through the tribulation? Might be. You know, he stood up for what, maybe he sent him on an errand or whatever. Wherever he is, he's not dead, but he's not in the furnace either. You know? So he was spared from this tribulation. Could be that picture. Okay. And here's look how old this is, 1150 AD. It's some kind of a plaque, like a ceramic or enamel plaque. A shield, I think it's small though, you know, from the wall. It's not like some big shield that you would hold. But if you stop and study it, this is Shadrach, Meshach. Oh, I'm sorry. This is Shadrach. How stupid of me. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And here is Jesus. So that was how they visualized it 1,200 years ago. And this, wow. I'm getting 3 wows.
You have to say it out loud for the video.
Oh, may the 4th be with you. Okay. Okay, because we're going to jump to the bonus because it's going to take 5 or 10 minutes, and that will be. And there's a couple other ones here. Oh, here we go. You know, I was telling you about all the different world empires, okay? Now, a world empire is, like, China is a big empire, but it's not a world empire. It doesn't rule the entire known world, okay, at its time. But here are a few who have tried to be world empires, okay? Charlemagne, he wanted the revived Roman Empire, okay? You had Napoleon. By the way, Satan does not know when Jesus is coming back. So Satan always has to have an antichrist in the side, ready to go, okay? And here's some examples, and it's going to be always a bad guy of his time. Napoleon, he wanted to be the emperor and another world empire. And a lot of these are bad men. He's a bad man. The Soviet Union, Stalin, that's bad, right? Bad guy. By the way, you know this guy? Okay. And you know this guy? This is one of my stupid hobbies, is to recreate album covers. Or whatever, so. There's Hitler. He was a bad guy. He'd have been a good Antichrist candidate. Okay, this was down in his bunker. Now, here's my final, this is a bonus. You're going to like this, I hope. Deuteronomy 10, 17 through 22. I don't know if we need to read it. He executes justice for orphan and widow. So show your love for the stranger. You shall fear the Lord your God. There's nothing in this text that I see related to Antichrist or an Antichrist character. It just happens to be those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 verses in English. And here, starting 7, here are those same 6 verses in Hebrew. Are we good? All right. Now, I'm going to start at this letter Hey. There it is. And I'm going to skip 22 letters. Well, let me see how many I have across here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I have 12 across. Okay? So if I go here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 21, 22. There we go right there, yes? That's 22 letters ahead. If I went 24 letters ahead, I would be right below it, 2. So 22 letters would be too short of that, okay? So let's go 22 letters, and I get a yod. And now I'm going to go 22 more letters, and I get a tet. And then I'm going to go 22 letters, and I'm going to get a lamed. And and I'm going to go 22 letters, and I'm going to get a resh. Now that's kind of interesting that every 22 letters, it spells Hitler. What do I do with that? I don't know. And you know what? Maybe it's just a coincidence. Oh, but I will tell you this. If I, instead of starting here, if I back up 22, I get an Aleph. So now we have a Hitler. A. Aloysius? No. Andy? No. Could be. So we got a Hitler every 22 letters apart. And now in that very same grid, if I start at this Aleph right here, and I'm going to skip negative 13. Well, negative is going backwards then, right? And because there's 12, if I go back 12, I'm right above. If I go 13, I'm here. Does that make sense? Okay. So there's 13, I get that. And if I do another 13, a shin. And another 13, a V. And another 13, a yod. And another 13, a tzadi. So every 13 letter, negative 13, it spells Auschwitz. In the same grid as the same A Hitler. Now that's kind of goosebump inducing. Okay? So, still, just a coincidence. And they're connected. Yes. And, you know, if I start here at this shin, and I'm going to skip negative 13. So it's the same, go back, and here's 12, 13. And I get a vav, and another 13, I get an aleph, and another 13, I get a hey. That spells shuvah. Shuvah, surprisingly, is the Hebrew word for Holocaust. Wow, what are the chances? And it's all in the same little grid. And it's not even a big grid. But it's only 12 across, you know, that you can hide all this in one little grid. And if I start right here at this mem, and I'm going to skip negative 11. So that would be almost the whole way around, right? And I'm going to get then a hey, and another 11 would give me a tav, another 11 would give me a shin, and another 11 would give me an aleph. And remember, if you put a mem in front of a word, it means from. Okay? So from, and then I have 400 and 300 is 700, 706 from, oh no, that's not right. This is 5, this is 5,701. Yes? From, is that what it says? There's the from. 5,701. On the Hebrew calendar, 5701 is isn't that cool? So I think the Torah is the word of the book of life. Our names are in it. It might be 2,356 letters apart, backwards, but our names are in there somewhere. Okay? So, okay, let's have a little prayer here. Heavenly Father, awesome God, thank you again for hiding this stuff, not hiding it, revealing it to us. Because again, it makes our faith easy. I just love it. We just ask that you will take us all home safely, bring us back tomorrow, and we, as always, pray for the peace of Jerusalem. And we ask this in Yeshua Jesus' precious holy name. Amen.